Jasmine Carter had always prided herself on being an attentive driver. She was careful and mindful of the rules of the road. As she drove through the quiet suburban streets of her city, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light on everything around her. The hum of her car engine was the only sound breaking the silence. She had just finished a long shift at the hospital, and all she could think about was getting home and unwinding after a tiring day. As she passed the intersection near the corner of Elm Street, she noticed a police car pulling behind her. The flashing lights immediately caught her attention, and her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't done anything wrong, she thought, so why was she being pulled over? The police officer's car was sleek and imposing as it followed her for several blocks before finally signaling for her to pull over. Jasmine's hands gripped the steering wheel as she guided the car to the side of the road. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but her nerves were getting the better of her. She knew how situations like these could escalate, especially for someone like her. A black woman in a quiet neighborhood often felt like a target for suspicion, and she couldn't help but feel that familiar knot of anxiety in her chest. The officer stepped out of his car and approached her vehicle with a stern expression. His uniform was crisply pressed, and his belt was weighed down by the tools of his trade. He seemed to take his time walking towards her, and Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. "Good evening, ma'am." The officer's voice was formal and impersonal as he reached the window. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Jasmine smiled politely and shook her head. "I'm not sure, officer. I didn't think I did anything wrong," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The officer didn't respond immediately. Instead, he peered into the car as if searching for something more than just the paperwork in her glove compartment. His gaze briefly scanned the interior before he looked back at her. "You ran the red light back there at the intersection," he stated flatly. "I saw you do it," he added with an air of finality. Jasmine's mind raced. She was sure she hadn't run any red lights. She always made sure to stop when the light was red, but she didn't want to argue with him in the middle of the street, so she took a deep breath and tried to remain composed. "I'm sorry, officer, but I don't think I did," she replied quietly. "I always stop at red lights," she repeated almost as a reassurance to herself. The officer didn't seem to hear her. Instead, he began writing on his ticket pad. Without a word, the scratching of his pen on paper echoed through the quiet street. Jasmine's eyes flicked to the ticket as he handed it to her with a brisk motion. "Here you go, ma'am," he said with little emotion. "You'll need to take this to court." Jasmine's chest tightened as she took the ticket from his hand. It wasn't just the fine that bothered her, but the way the situation felt so dismissive and unjust. She hadn't even been given a chance to explain herself. She forced a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, officer," she said, and with that, he turned and walked back to his patrol car. As he drove away, Jasmine sat in her car for a moment, staring at the ticket in her hand. The words blurred in front of her eyes. She had never been one to make a scene, but tonight she felt a deep sense of frustration and confusion bubbling up within her. She didn't understand what had just happened or why it felt so wrong, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't just let this go. The days that followed the incident felt like a blur for Jasmine as she tried to go about her life. Despite the lingering unease in the pit of her stomach, she found herself replaying the moment over and over again in her mind, questioning what had gone wrong, why she had been treated like that on the side of the road. The ticket sat on her kitchen table, a constant reminder of the unjust encounter. She couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. The day of her court appearance arrived too quickly for her liking. The courthouse was imposing, as always. Its large stone columns and high ceilings made everything feel official and serious, as if every case that passed through there was a matter of life and death. Jasmine stood outside the courtroom for a moment, staring at the heavy wooden doors, wondering what she had gotten herself into. She had never been in trouble before, never had to stand before a judge, and now here she was for something that felt so trivial and yet so significant. When her name was called, she walked into the courtroom with a calm expression, but inside her nerves were rattling. She had prepared herself for this moment, but still the weight of it all hit her harder than she expected. The room was packed with people, all waiting for their turn with the judge. There was a tension in the air, an energy of anticipation that felt thick and suffocating. At the front of the room sat Judge Richard Allen ***. His face was stern, his eyes fixed on the paperwork in front of him. As he sifted through case files, Jasmine could feel his gaze shift to her as she took her seat in the defendant's chair. It was as though the entire room had grown quiet in that instant. She wasn't just a woman in trouble, she was now a number of case file to be processed through the system. The proceedings began and Jasmine's heart raced as she listened to the officer's testimony ***. Officer Daniels ***, spoke clearly and confidently. As he recounted the events of the traffic stop, he spoke of her running the red light without hesitation, despite Jasmine's quiet protestation that it had not happened. The officer's words held weight in the sterile environment of the courtroom, and Jasmine couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness wash over her. When it was her turn to speak, Jasmine stood up slowly and addressed the judge in a steady voice. She explained how she had been careful at the intersection and how she didn't believe she had run the light. She told him that she had always tried to follow the rules and that the situation felt unfair to her. She tried to be calm, but the frustration in her words was hard to contain. Judge Allen listened to her with a blank expression, his eyes never leaving the papers in front of him. It felt as though he wasn't really listening to her words, but rather processing her case, as if it were another routine decision in a long day of court hearings. He didn't ask any questions or seem to seek any clarification. He just nodded in silence. After a long pause, the judge made his decision. "The fine stands," he said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of authority in the room. "You'll need to pay the amount listed on the ticket or appear in court again for further proceedings," he added as he turned his attention back to the next case. Jasmine stood there stunned. The words didn't register immediately, but when they did, they hit her hard. She had hoped for some understanding, some leniency, but it had never come her way. Instead, she was met with indifference and finality. The courtroom had turned cold in that moment. She felt small, like a piece of paper being tossed aside without a second thought. As she walked out of the courtroom, her mind was spinning. She couldn't believe it. She had given her best explanation, and it hadn't mattered. It was as though her voice didn't count for anything in that space. She tried to hold her head high, but the sting of the decision was heavy on her chest. Outside the courthouse, the world felt distant and unfamiliar. Jasmine stood for a moment in the cool air, trying to gather her thoughts. The ticket in her hand felt like an accusation, one she didn't know how to answer. As Jasmine walked away from the courthouse, her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and frustration. She hadn't expected to leave with the fine still standing, but the way it had all unfolded left her with a bitter taste. She felt like a pawn in a system that had no interest in understanding her, just a faceless defendant being processed through an endless cycle. Jasmine's feet carried her to her car, each step feeling heavier than the last. She opened the door and slid into the driver's seat, staring at the ticket in her hand. The words on the paper blurred for a moment as her mind raced. Why had she even bothered to explain herself? The judge hadn't listened. The officer hadn't cared. In that room, she had been just another case number, another routine violation to check off. But as she sat there, her phone buzzed in her bag, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Lori ***, an old friend she hadn't seen in years. They'd met during Jasmine's time in the U.S. Air Force ***, and though they had lost touch over the years, their bond had remained. Lori had always admired Jasmine's quiet strength, the way she carried herself, the way she handled everything life threw her way. Jasmine tapped the screen and opened the message. It read, *K, I saw the news about what happened. Are you okay? I didn't know you were in court today. What's going on? Jasmine sighed, typing back a quick response. It's been a long day. Just got fined. I'm fine though. Lori's reply came almost immediately. You were in court. Wait, you didn't tell me you got a ticket. What happened at Jasmine hesitated before typing out the full story. She didn't want to make it seem like she was complaining, but she also didn't want to keep everything bottled up. After a few moments, she sent a long message explaining the situation, the ticket, the court hearing, the judge's decision. To her surprise, Lori's response was not what she expected. Didn't know about any of this, but Jasmine, You're a veteran. You've served this country. You don't just get treated like that. Asterisk. Jasmine stared at the message, the words sinking in. She hadn't mentioned her military background to anyone at work or to the officer. It wasn't something she broadcasted. It was a part of her past that she kept private, a chapter that felt like another lifetime. But as she read Lori's message, something shifted within her. Asterisk asterisk she deserved to be treated with dignity asterisk asterisk. Lori continued, asterisk, you have to let me help. You deserve to be heard. I'm going to get in touch with a veterans group and see what they can do. You can't just let this go. Asterisk. Jasmine sat in stunned silence for a moment, her heart heavy with the weight of Lori's words. She'd spent so long keeping her service a quiet part of her identity, afraid to draw attention to it. But now, for the first time, she wondered if she had been wrong to keep it hidden. It wasn't just her story. It was a story of resilience, a story that had shaped who she was. If anyone needed to hear it, it was the people who still didn't understand why this wasn't just a small misunderstanding. She typed back, her fingers shaking as she responded. Asterisk, you're right. Maybe it's time I stop hiding that part of me. Let's see what we can do. Asterisk. Lori's excitement was evident in the next message. Asterisk, I'll reach out to the right people. We'll get this sorted. Hold tight. You've earned every bit of respect you deserve. Asterisk. Jasmine smiled softly, the weight on her chest feeling just a little bit lighter. She wasn't alone in this. She had people who cared, who saw her for who she really was. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for everyone else to see it too. The next few days passed in a blur for Jasmine. Her initial feelings of frustration gradually gave way to a quiet determination. Lori had contacted the veterans group she worked with, and they were already planning to reach out to asterisk asterisk Judge Richard Allen asterisk asterisk. Jasmine didn't know what exactly could be done, but the thought of someone finally standing by her side gave her a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a while. Every morning, as she got up to go to work, she felt the weight of the ticket on her mind, but she also felt something else. Asterisk asterisk, the strength of her service asterisk asterisk. It had been years since she left the Air Force, but the values instilled in her during that time still echoed in her heart: duty, honor, and resilience. It was clear now, more than ever, that she had to stand up, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been dismissed, overlooked, or treated unjustly by systems that didn't always understand the full picture. That afternoon, Jasmine's phone rang, and when she saw the name on the screen, her heart skipped a beat. It was asterisk asterisk Judge Allen's office asterisk asterisk. Hello, this is Jasmine Carter, she answered, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. Good afternoon, Miss Carter, a warm voice said on the other end. This is asterisk asterisk Catherine asterisk asterisk from Judge Allen's office. We've been trying to reach you. The judge has requested that you come in for a meeting. He would like to speak with you personally regarding your case. Jasmine's mind raced. Why would the judge want to meet with her? Was this some kind of formality, or was something about her case being reconsidered? Of course, Jasmine replied. When would be a good time? We've scheduled you for tomorrow at 10 a.m., Catherine responded. Please come to the courthouse. The judge is looking forward to speaking with you. Jasmine hung up the phone with a mix of anticipation and nerves. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the fact that the judge wanted to meet with her face-to-face felt like a step in the right direction. She wasn't sure if this would be the resolution she was hoping for, but she knew one thing for certain. This meeting was her chance to be seen, not as a woman who had made a mistake, but as someone who had served her country and who deserved respect. The following morning, she arrived at the courthouse, her thoughts swirling. When she entered the building, it felt different this time. She wasn't just walking in as a defendant. She was walking in with a purpose. As she made her way to the judge's chambers, her heart beat a little faster. She was about to meet the man who had dismissed her, who had never even considered the bigger picture when making his decision. She was escorted into the judge's office and asked to sit. The room was warm, filled with old leather-bound books and a view of the city below. It was a sharp contrast to the coldness of the courtroom where she had been just days before. Judge Allen entered the room shortly after, his expression serious but softer than she had remembered. He took a seat across from her, folding his hands together on the desk. "Miss Carter," he began, his voice calm but sincere. "I want to start by saying that I've had a chance to reflect on your case. I regret that I didn't ask the right questions when I first heard your side. I was too quick to make a judgment." Jasmine felt a lump rise in her throat. She hadn't expected this kind of admission. Her initial instinct was to remain cautious, to not get her hopes up, but something about his tone made her pause. This was different. He was listening. The judge continued, "It's come to my attention that you are a decorated Air Force veteran, and I want to apologize for not considering that during the proceedings. You've given so much to this country, and it should have been acknowledged. I deeply regret that I didn't take that into account." Jasmine's heart softened. The anger she had felt earlier started to melt away, replaced by a quiet sense of respect. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "Thank you," she whispered. Judge Allen looked at her with genuine regret. "I've taken steps to rectify this, Ms. Carter. The fine will be waived, and I'm personally going to ensure that this is properly handled. You deserve better than what happened." Jasmine's emotions swirled, but one thing was clear. The judge was trying to make things right. It wasn't just about the fine anymore. It was about being seen as who she truly was, not just as someone who had made a simple mistake. "Thank you for giving me the chance to make this right," Judge Allen said, his voice sincere. Jasmine took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the last few days lift off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was finally being heard. Jasmine left the courthouse with a feeling of cautious relief, the weight of the ticket finally lifting from her shoulders. As she walked down the courthouse steps, the sun was shining brightly, and for the first time in days, it felt like the world had opened up just a little bit more. The judge's decision was a victory, but it wasn't just about the fine being waived. It was about the acknowledgement, the recognition of her service, her dignity, and her humanity. She couldn't wait to share the news with Lori. As she sat in her car and dialed her friend's number, a smile spread across her face. The frustration and anxiety she had carried for days had been replaced with something lighter, something like peace. "Lori," Jasmine said when her friend picked up, her voice full of relief. "I just left the courthouse, and you won't believe it." Lori's voice was filled with anticipation. "What happened? Tell me everything." Jasmine laughed softly. "The judge," he apologized. "He said he didn't take my service into account, and now the fine's been waived. He's even going to make sure everything gets handled properly." There was a moment of silence on the other end before Lori's excited voice erupted. "Oh my God, Jasmine, that's amazing. I knew you deserved to be treated better, but hearing this makes me so happy. You stood your ground, and look what happened. That's incredible." Jasmine felt her heart swell at Lori's words. "I couldn't have done it without you, Lori. You were the one who pushed me to stand up for myself, to remind me who I am. It means everything to me." Lori's voice softened. "You're a fighter, Jasmine. Always have been. And today, you showed everyone that you're not someone to be ignored. You stood up for yourself, and that's what matters. We all need to be heard." Jasmine took a deep breath, letting Lori's words sink in. For so long, she had kept her military background quiet, almost like it was a separate part of her life that didn't need to be acknowledged. But today, everything felt different. It wasn't about bragging or seeking praise. It was about honoring the sacrifices she had made and the lessons she had learned during her service. It was about claiming her space in a world that often tried to overlook her. "Thank you for believing in me," Jasmine said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "You made me realize that I don't have to hide who I am." Lori's laughter filled the air. "You've always been someone to be proud of, Jasmine. Never forget that." Jasmine felt a surge of gratitude toward her friend. She had always been there for her, even when they hadn't been in touch for a while. It wasn't just the veterans group or the judge who had helped her in this moment. It was the people who loved her, who believed in her, who reminded her that she had a voice that mattered. That evening, as Jasmine sat in her living room, she thought about everything that had transpired: the frustration, the anxiety, the feeling of being unseen, and how it had all turned around in a way she hadn't expected. She wasn't just a woman who had been fined for running a red light. She was a veteran, a survivor, a person who had earned the right to be heard. She stared at the empty space where the ticket had been just days before, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a symbol of defeat. It felt like a reminder, asterisk asterisk, of her strength, her perseverance, and her ability to stand up when it mattered most, asterisk asterisk. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready for whatever came next. She wasn't just navigating the road anymore, she was taking the wheel and driving it in her own direction. The weeks that followed felt like a new chapter for Jasmine. What had started as a simple traffic violation had transformed into something much more profound. Her life, once marked by quiet restraint, had begun to change. She found herself stepping into conversations she would have once avoided, her voice more confident, her presence more assertive. The whole experience had ignited something in her, a desire not just to be seen, but to speak up when things weren't right. One afternoon, Jasmine was walking through the downtown area on her way to grab lunch when she was approached by a woman she didn't recognize. The woman smiled warmly and waved her over. "Jasmine, right?" the woman asked, her voice friendly. Jasmine hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, that's me. I'm asterisk asterisk Maya asterisk asterisk. I work with a local veterans advocacy group." The woman introduced herself. "I've been hearing a lot about what happened in court, and I just wanted to reach out and say how much it means to us, the way you stood up for yourself. You're an inspiration to so many of us." Jasmine blinked, surprised by the recognition. "Thank you," she said, feeling a little taken aback. "I didn't expect anyone to be paying attention to my case. It wasn't supposed to be about me. It was just a mistake that needed to be corrected." Mina shook her head, her eyes earnest. "No, it was more than that. You didn't just take the ticket or quietly accept things. You fought, and now others are seeing that. You've made an impact. I've been working with veterans for years, and it's stories like yours that help us remind everyone why respect for veterans matters." Jasmine was stunned, her mind reeling. "I had no idea it had reached so far," she admitted. Maya smiled. "When someone with your background speaks up, people listen, and they should. You've earned your voice. I think you'd be perfect for helping us with an upcoming campaign, raising awareness for veterans' rights, making sure people understand what we go through, and why the system needs to change." The offer took Jasmine by surprise. She had never imagined herself as a public speaker or someone who could be a figurehead for a cause. But hearing Maya speak with such genuine admiration made her pause. Asterisk asterisk, could she do this? Could she be a voice for others who might be struggling with the same injustices she had experienced? Asterisk asterisk. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for something like that," Jasmine said, a little uncertain. "I mean, I'm not an expert. I just did what anyone would have done." Maya shook her head, as if sensing Jasmine's doubt. "That's exactly why we need you. It's not about being an expert. It's about sharing your story, your experience. People don't always understand what veterans go through. They think we're all the same, but we're not. We all have unique experiences, and your voice, your perspective, will make a difference." Jasmine stood there for a moment, contemplating. The idea of stepping into the spotlight felt intimidating, but the more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the right thing to do. Maybe this was her chance to truly asterisk asterisk make a difference, asterisk asterisk. She had always wanted to help people, but she had never imagined that doing so might involve confronting the very system that had once overlooked her. "I'll think about it," she finally said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'll need some time, but I'm open to it." Maya's smile was full of encouragement. "Take all the time you need. Just know that if you decide to join us, you'll have a whole community behind you, supporting you every step of the way." As Jasmine walked away from the encounter, her mind was racing. She had come so far from the woman who had simply wanted to go home after a long day. Now she was being asked to help lead a movement, to stand alongside others who had been overlooked or mistreated. The weight of that responsibility was daunting, but it also felt right. She wasn't just Jasmine Carter a woman who had been unfairly fined. She was a veteran, a survivor, and now she was going to be part of something bigger than herself. The path ahead wasn't clear, but for the first time, Jasmine felt like she was walking it with purpose. Jasmine spent the next few days in quiet contemplation. The conversation with Maya had sparked something deep inside her, a calling she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about fighting for her own justice anymore. It was about speaking up for others, for all the people who had been overlooked, mistreated, or dismissed simply because they didn't have the platform or the voice to be heard. She had always felt the weight of being a veteran in a world that often forgot about those who had served, but now she was being given a chance to do something about it. As she sat at her kitchen table, her phone buzzing with notifications, she felt a wave of doubt wash over her. Was she really ready for this? Could she balance this new responsibility with her regular life? What if people didn't take her seriously? She wasn't a professional speaker or activist. She was just a woman who had faced an unfair situation and had stood up for herself. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that her story was important. It was a story of strength, resilience, and standing up for what was right. And that, she believed, was something worth sharing. The following week, Jasmine met with Maya again, this time at a small cafe downtown. As they sat across from each other, Maya could sense Jasmine's hesitation. "You're still unsure, aren't you?" Maya asked, her voice gentle but knowing. Jasmine nodded slowly, taking a sip of her coffee before responding. "I don't know if I'm the right person for this. I've never done anything like it. What if I mess up? What if I can't make a difference?" Maya smiled warmly. "I understand your doubts, but let me tell you something. It's not about being perfect. It's about being authentic. People connect with real stories, real emotions. You've already proven that when you stood up for yourself in court, you didn't back down. And that's what matters. If you speak from the heart, people will listen." Jasmine absorbed Maya's words, her mind shifting as she processed them. Authenticity. That's what it was about. She didn't have to be some polished public figure. She just had to be herself. And in a way, this was the same as the fight she had already won in court. She was standing up for something bigger than herself. "I'm ready," Jasmine said, a newfound determination settling in her chest. "I'll do it. I'll help you with the campaign. It's time I stop hiding behind fear." Maya's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's amazing, Jasmine. You won't regret it. The work we do might seem small at first, but I promise you, it has a ripple effect. When people hear your story, they'll start thinking differently. They'll see veterans as more than just a title. They'll see the human beings behind it, the struggles we face, and the strength we carry every day." Jasmine smiled, her heart pounding with anticipation. For the first time, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known she was missing. She had always worked hard to live a quiet life, keeping her head down and her past locked away. But now she realized her story could be a beacon for others. If she could help even one person feel seen or heard, it would be worth it. "Let's do it," she said, her voice firm. "I'm ready to share my story. Let's make some noise." As they finished their coffee, Maya outlined the first steps of the campaign. They would start by holding a small rally in the city park, inviting veterans from all walks of life to come together and share their experiences. It wasn't going to be easy, and Jasmine knew that it would be an emotional journey, but she felt a new sense of power in her decision. She wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. She was fighting for visibility, for respect, and for the recognition that veterans weren't invisible. They had stories worth telling. That night, as Jasmine prepared for the rally, she felt both nervous and excited. Her life had changed in a way she hadn't expected, but she was no longer afraid. This was her chance to make a lasting impact, not just for herself, but for all the voices that had been silenced for too long. And as she stood in front of the crowd for the first time, ready to speak, She knew that this was just the beginning. The day of the rally arrived, and Jasmine felt the familiar flutter of nerves in her stomach. As she stood at the edge of the park, looking at the gathering crowd, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. There were veterans from all branches of the military, each with their own story, their own struggles, and their own reasons for being there. They were standing together, united not just by their shared service, but by a desire to be seen, to be heard. Jasmine had never imagined herself in this position, speaking publicly, addressing a crowd of strangers, sharing her personal experiences. But as she looked out at the faces before her, she felt an overwhelming sense of connection. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about all of them, and it was about everyone who had ever felt invisible or marginalized because of their past, their identity, or their service. Maya stood beside her, offering a supportive smile. "You're ready," she said softly. "Just speak from the heart. They're here to listen to you." Jasmine nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. The crowd quieted, all eyes on her, waiting for her to speak. For a moment, Jasmine simply stood there, looking out at the faces of the people who had come to hear her story. She could see the veterans in the crowd, some older, some younger, but all with the same sense of pride in their eyes. And in that moment, she knew she wasn't just telling her own story. She was telling theirs too. She cleared her throat and began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "My name is Jasmine Carter. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran, and I've been through something recently that I'm sure many of you can relate to. A few weeks ago, I was fined for a traffic violation. It seemed like a small thing, but when I went to court, I was treated as just another case number, someone who didn't matter, someone who had no voice." She paused, letting her words sink in, her eyes scanning the crowd. She could feel their empathy, their understanding, and it gave her the courage to continue. "But the thing is," she went on, "I do matter. And so do all of you. We've served our country, we've made sacrifices, and we deserve respect. Not just for what we've done, but for who we are. We're not just veterans, we're human beings with stories and lives that go beyond our service." There was a murmur of agreement from the crowd, and Jasmine could see heads nodding. It was clear she wasn't alone in her feelings. Every one of us has faced challenges, whether it's being overlooked, misunderstood, or even ignored. But today, we stand together. Today, we refuse to be silenced. We have a voice, and we're going to use it, because when we speak up, we can make a difference. The crowd erupted into applause, and for the first time, Jasmine felt the true power of what she was doing. It wasn't just about the words she was speaking. It was about the solidarity, the unity, and the strength that came from sharing those words with others. She continued, her voice gaining strength with every sentence. "I've learned that standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. It doesn't matter how small or big the fight is. We deserve to be treated with dignity, and we deserve to be seen for who we truly are. This is just the beginning. Let's continue to fight, to raise our voices, and to make sure that no veteran ever feels invisible again." The applause grew louder, and Jasmine could feel the energy in the air shift. She wasn't just telling her own story anymore. She was igniting something in the crowd, a spark of hope, a call to action. It wasn't just about a fine being waived or a legal victory. It was about visibility, respect, and the power of speaking up, As she finished her speech, she stepped back from the podium, overwhelmed by the response. People were coming up to her, shaking her hand, thanking her for sharing her story. It was clear that her words had resonated. She wasn't just a woman who had been fined anymore. She was a voice for change, a symbol of resilience. Jasmine felt a deep sense of fulfillment in that moment, knowing that she had not only made a difference in her own life, but in the lives of so many others. She had found her purpose, and it was bigger than she had ever imagined. And as the rally continued, Jasmine knew that this was just the beginning. She had taken the first step toward creating real change, and she was ready to continue the journey, one voice at a time.